So many of you had trouble with the learning objectives and Bloom's taxonomy inside of lesson plan submission 1. So I'm going to go over and try to reteach some of those aspects for your lesson plan submission 2. So just as a reminder, you need to take the comments and the suggestions from the lesson plan submission 1 and make sure you apply them to lesson plan submission 2. So on this next go round, I'll be evaluating those first couple of things again, along with these extra items for lesson plan 2. So with lesson plan 2, you need to go back, and if I've talked to you about your learning objective, you need to correct that learning objective. The thing that I saw the most is that most of you didn't have a condition. And so inside your learning objective, you have your audience, which is the students, the behavior, which is kind of what they're learning. So is that analyzing text? Is that counting from 1 to 20? Is it looking at settings and characters? And then you need to add the condition. So that's the part that I saw missing from most people's learning objectives was the condition. So you've talked to me about what they're teaching. Now talk to me about how they're going to be doing that, or what they're learning. How are they going to do that? So if they're counting from 1 to 20, doing what? Is it on a manipulative? Is it in math stations? Is it on a worksheet? Is it using Cheerios? I mean, so how are they demonstrating that behavior? If they're analyzing text, what text are they analyzing? If they're looking at characterization, you know, what story are they looking in? So you need to not just say the what they're learning, but how they're learning, or through what venue, through what medium. So when I talk about the condition, that's really what I'm looking for, is the how they're demonstrating that. And so of course through your lesson plan, you're going to have lots and lots of different ways that you're addressing that learning objective, but kind of what's the final piece? What's that final product? Are they showing it to you through these stations throughout the lesson? Are they showing it to you from this worksheet at the very end? Are they showing it to you through a presentation? So how are they showing you that behavior? The other part that most people had trouble on was Bloom's taxonomy, and I understand that Bloom's taxonomy is difficult. And the reason it's difficult is because you have to not just look at the verb that you're using inside of the learning objective, but it's taking that verb and it's analyzing what type of thought process is the student really doing. So if the student's just basically recalling facts, then that's knowledge. If they're trying to understand something or grapple, like describing a character would be comprehension. Are they really pulling pieces apart to try to make sense of something? That's analyzation or analyzing. Are they trying to evaluate or justify or defend? So don't just ask yourself, where does that verb fit within Bloom's taxonomy levels, but really what is the level of thinking that's present? What type of thought process do they have to go through in order to complete that learning objective? So that's why your learning objective is so important, that you only have one verb, that you have one behavior that you're really looking at, because the rest of your lesson plan should fit and go back to mastering that one learning objective. So as an additional note then for your Bloom's taxonomy, if you have multiple learning objectives, that's going to be tough. So you need to really have one, maybe two learning objectives if that one doesn't provide you enough information to cover that full hour lesson. So I really encourage you to have one objective that's a little meatier objective versus 3 learning objectives. So 2 at the very most. And then what I want you to do is choose one level of Bloom's. And how you're going to choose that, again, is based on the verb, but really think about the thought process behind that verb. And the reason I say that is because you can have, you know, identify or understand or comprehension, these kind of floating verbs throughout the Bloom's taxonomy. So think too about the thinking behind it. So when you analyze, let's say, yes, those other things are going to be present. In order for you to analyze, you do have to be able to recall some information. You do have to be able to understand the topic. So when you analyze, yeah, you do kind of have the rest of the Bloom's in there. So that's why I'm saying choose one Bloom's, the Bloom's that's most identified or most descriptive of that learning objective. And so choose the one that you think really is the highest one that's applicable to your learning objective. So if you just have basic recall, then that's going to be knowledge. So don't try to read anything into the objective as far as Bloom's taxonomy. My point is if you have analysis, you probably also have reading or knowledge and comprehension. And that's okay. That's kind of how it should be. But what is the best level of Bloom's represented inside your learning objective? what's the highest level of blooms represented in that learning objective. And then the point is, when you do your lessons and your activities, so the process part, which is the part you're working on now, that level of thinking needs to be present throughout your process. So for example, if you have a basic recall of your blooms level and your learning objective, you can't go all crazy and go analytical and evaluation and creation, all of this throughout the process, because that doesn't match the learning objective. There's time and places for the rest of that, but you really need to look back at whatever learning objective and how it's guiding you as far as your thinking and your thought process. So that's why building that learning objective is so critical in understanding where that thought process is coming from. So the pieces you're going to add to it this time are the classroom strategies, the learning styles, and the actual A to Z. This is what I'm doing inside my teaching, inside my process. So I did put a couple of reminders in there for you for the introduction piece of things that you need to remember. But also really look through the classroom strategies and the learning style pieces, because you want to make sure you're incorporating several learning styles and several classroom strategies inside of your process. So of course, if you have questions, please let me know. But do take some time really reviewing the materials that are presented inside the module to help you navigate what types of teaching strategies, learning styles, and things like that you should incorporate.